I live in the Springs, and it's like I'll go out and it's like I'm at the shops, and normally in the UK you'd be like, oh, head down, don't. And all the kids are like,
here you say yes.
Kids, hey sir. And if a kid doesn't say, if I've seen a kid in Spinners and they don't say hello to me, I will see them on Monday and go, why don't you say hello to me? And they're
nice.
like, really sorry, sir. I'll say
next time they better come and acknowledge. A very good evening to all of you, and welcome once again to one exciting episode of the Reengineering podcast. Myself, Madhusmita Nayak, your host, and today we have a truly exceptional visionary leader in the field of education. He is none other than Alex Gray. He is an educational innovator and the founder of deepprofessional.com platform, a platform for educational practices that makes a difference. Welcome, Alex, to the podcast.
Thank you ever so much for having me.
It's a pleasure having you. And I watch your podcast all the time. It's so inspiring. And we'll talk more about that, how you started your International Classroom podcast.
Thank you. Again, thank you ever so much for having me. And I'm glad that the podcast is having the desired effect and impact on the global classroom, as it were.
Yes, and because of you, I started this podcast, I must admit. And for you, before we delve into questions, I just want to ask you, what do you feel about the word reengineering?
I like it. And I think it's something that, from an educational perspective, is actually being used quite a lot at the moment.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. So I was on LinkedIn the other day within my professional learning network, and one of the guys had said, look, put this photo out. I did a video the other day, and people had commented on the background. And I'd asked AI to generate an image of a futuristic classroom. Okay. And it came out with desks, just desks. And he said, I challenge anyone to try and get a future-based classroom, and you have to use the word classroom, that doesn't have rows of desks in.
Okay.
And funnily enough, I said, we're all trying it and it doesn't work. Just because of the way AI is trained, classroom equals desk. That's what it sees. And I said, well, maybe we need to re-engineer the word classroom. And in order to do that, it's about breaking down what our current understanding of something is, and then building back those parts of how can we make it better and more in line with what we want for a future. And I think re-engineering in teaching is something we all do. We're doing it at the moment with, what applications, technology, all those things we have at our fingertips. And it's about then going, right, I taught it this way. Now I've got this, can I use this to teach it differently? And we're constantly looking backwards to then embrace these devices, technologies, AI, to help us be better and improve what we're offering constantly.
Correct, and we are making it future ready.
That's the aim. That's the aim. A lot of the people, and you've mentioned the podcast I get to speak to, is all about future skills and future ready. Even though we're kind of uncertain what those may look like, we know that skills are going to be, I think, more predominant than academic qualifications.
Definitely, I agree on that. And as we are talking about future education, I'd like to know more about how you started your education journey and how you landed up in Dubai.
So I started, my first teaching job was in 2006. So I went to Loughborough University, did a degree in human biology, and I'd always played rugby. And then got into rugby coaching just because of a few injuries. And I wasn't quite sure what to do as a profession. And my dad actually suggested, well, why don't you go into teaching? Like, you love working with kids, you love coaching. It would seem like a natural fit. You can do it at Loughborough for the year. So I did a PGCE and really enjoyed it. Like, I was someone who probably weirdly found it quite easy, which maybe that's the wrong word to use, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed planning, creating, crafting, and a flow, which is like planning out a training session, a rugby session. And so in that sense, I enjoyed bringing game elements in.
Okay.
And so I was very fortunate within my first couple of years. I worked in the West Midlands in the UK, which is Birmingham area. And I moved from grammar schools to boarding schools and to grammar schools. So working with rugby, which kind of got me into my first job. And then learning from all these fantastic educators, about teaching and students, and with high demands, because grammar schools in the UK are known as the best education money can't buy, because you have to pass the 11 plus, you get selected to go in. So, these students have high academic potential, but also the focus on holistic education. And my wife is not a teacher. She is an interior designer.
Okay.
And her company were opening up a branch in Dubai. And we'd always said, look, if we get the opportunity to work abroad, let's do it. So she kind of looked at me and went, yeah, okay. And so I started putting out my CVs and had an interview with the GEM school.
Okay.
And I was like, right, they've offered me the job. We've got 3 days to make a decision. And she just looked at me with like this furious. And she's like, I thought this was one of those times where you said something and you never acted on it like you normally do. I was like, no, this is one out of 5 times. Yes. And she was like, right, okay. And so this was end of February, beginning of March. And we then said, right, well, we got to sell our house. Sold it in a day. Moved in with my mum and dad. She was heavily pregnant, and we had another one who was at that time about 15 months old. Okay. So moved out to Dubai in August of 2015 with 2 children of what was 2 months and about 20 months old.
What an incredible journey. Yes.
And did the typical, we'll be here for a couple of years and we'll move home. And nope, 9 years later, we are still here.
Yeah, and many more years to go.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I've just accepted a new position actually recently. So I will be the founding head of sixth form at Arcadia School in Jumeirah Village Triangle.
This is the news.
This is the news. So come August time, I will be moving there to help develop and build that.
Okay.
So that's definitely going to keep me here for a few more years. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's incredible. And your wife made you come here, but see, you will be staying many more years here.
I think she'll say that I made her come here and I've kept her here. But, she's happy. The kids are happy. Dubai is, people talk about international education. I think it's the best place to be. There are still people outside in other countries doing amazing things, and I get the very privilege to speak to them about what they're doing. But as a whole, Dubai is a place to live, as a place to work, and the types of people we get to meet, I think it's the best.
Yes, it's the best. I completely agree on that. And you being the host of International Classroom Podcast, you have incredible content. And saying that, what actually motivated you to start this podcast?
Well, during the pandemic, I was approached, funnily enough, again over LinkedIn, by a publishing company in Singapore. So Marshall Cavendish approached me and said, "Look, we want to produce a series of primary science books. Would you be interested in writing and authoring some?" So I was like, "Yeah, okay, this would be great. It's something to tick off my list of achievements I want to do." So they said, "Right, we'll write this chapter. We'll see what it's like." Anyway, did it, and they were like, "Yep, great. We want you to do a year 5 book," and it's a series of books, so the teacher book, student book, activity book, and all the lessons. Yeah. Amazing. So, and the deal was really good, I think, in terms of a royalties-based deal. So, where are we now? 24, 23. So, at the end of 2022, I got my first royalties check. Okay. And so, me and a friend of mine were like, what should we do? But we were just having around Christmas time, I said, let's start a podcast. Let's just do it. I'd been doing YouTube and videos for a while, and we were just like, let's do something, it'd be great fun. And so it's like, right, I took some of that money. I'd already got a lot of the camera gear anyway, because I'm a camera enthusiast. And I said, right, we'll get some microphones, we'll get an audio interface, boom, we're good to go. And you did everything yourself? Yeah. Oh. I could already edit videos. I use Premiere Pro. I'd learned how to do it during lockdown. And that's what helped me kind of get started on YouTube. I was then using YouTube to learn about how to do YouTube. And took those skill sets and just applied it to something else. I'm a huge believer of skill stacking. And I think from an educational perspective, there's so many educators out there with fantastic skills, but it's the idea of how do you stack them and use them to your advantage to leverage them. Correct. And I think I've been in a very fortunate position and maybe one throughout my own making as well, that I've just leveraged my skills for my own probably interests, and with the hope of building bridges and opening doors for other educators around the world. I think that sets you apart from other educators, your urge for continuous improvement and learning in education itself. Yeah, and I think there are a lot of educators like that out there. Yeah. But I'm just in a very fortunate position where I will find time to make a podcast, and I'm happy and to edit and create content. It doesn't mean that there are educators out there, worse off than I am. It's just having that interest and passion to be able to showcase those things. Yeah. For me, I find it my role to find those educators, to find those people who are doing wonderful things, who don't have that voice or want to come on and showcase that and go, look, just come and speak to me and let's open up what you're doing. And you're creating a platform for them. That's what I want. That's the whole purpose of the International Classroom. And this season, it really has gone international. I've spoke with people in Mexico, in South Africa, in California, UK, Romania, here in the UAE. Incredible, across the globe. Yeah, and the International Classroom is going on the road in March. We are actually traveling to Romania to Bucharest
Okay.
for an AI conference where we will be podcasting and recording and
Very-
interviewing.
okay.
So we were going truly international.
Actually, it signifies the word, the international classroom, and you are accommodating international educators and school leaders.
Thank you.
Saying that with lot of viewers and subscribers and fellow educators, have you received any kind of comments, pushback, criticism? And
Always.
Always?
Always. And this is the thing with it. If you are creating content,
Yeah.
and especially in education where it can be very diversive. People have opinions and views, and people have biases, and they're stuck in habits and ways because that's how they were trained and that's how they've always done things. And that's okay. I think if you are having the conversation, then you're doing it right. That's my view on it. If I put something out there and people disagree, it's like, that's okay.
Yes.
I don't mind it. And you get some, and this is the thing with certain social media sites, you'll get some in terms of certain comments and people will say, and it's like, that's okay.
And how do you address that?
Generally,
You take the
I
feedback.
just ignore it. I'm
Okay.
like, unless I want to engage in a conversation, I'm always like, well, just kill them with kindness.
Okay.
And I heard this story from someone that I'd spoken with who is like a big time on TikTok, big time on TikTok.
Okay.
I said, how do you deal with that? And he goes, well, I just look at their profile. And he said, one of them, someone had said something about it. And he just went, no worries about that. Hope you and all the cats are doing well.
Okay.
Because obviously he'd looked on this person's profile, saw that they had something to do with cats.
Okay.
And he was just like, yeah, fair play, I was having a bad day. And that's what you realize. And it's the hardest thing to do is trying to see it from someone else's perspective.
Correct.
And go, well, why do you think they've done that? Are they having a bad day? Are they tired? Are they just scrolled through this in an emotional state and gone, would they really have said that to my face if I was here? And once you understand that and the world that we live in, you just go, meh, it's not going to stop me creating content.
Correct.
For every one person, there might be 10 other people out there that find value in what I'm doing. And in the diversive nature of education, and what's the beautiful thing about it is, just because I teach in one way doesn't mean that you have to.
That is the best way to, there
Exactly.
can be multiple ways.
You may find at some point in time that, hang on a minute, actually I remember this now, and my priorities in my classroom have changed, or my thoughts and feelings on this have changed. I'll try it. And I think that's the biggest thing for educators, is to look at it and go, I can be a risk taker.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And sometimes they get the support from the SLT and sometimes they don't. And that's the part that holds them back.
And the best part is that you keep going and
Always.
accommodating all the feedback.
Yeah, exactly.
Saying that, you have created enough content in your deepprofessional.com and you share it in YouTube. And considering all the busy schedules of teachers and more busy schedules of the school leaders and parents, how do you think Deep Professional International Classroom Podcast will manage all these time constraints?
I plan out my time meticulously. Had I not been a teacher, I'd be in the military. That's
so disciplined.
Yeah, unfortunately, when I was quite young, I played a lot of rugby and I got injured quite a lot, broke a lot of bones. But I was very much keen on being in the military. And I have this saying, it's not mine, and I say it to the kids in terms of, on time is early.
Yeah, okay.
On time is late.
Okay.
So it's like if you're turning up for an interview and your interview's, I don't know, say today, it's like 11 o'clock, you turn up at 10 to 11, which is 10:50. I have to make sure I get these right. And you don't turn up at 11 o'clock, hence on time is late. Early is on time is late. And so for me, I will calendar out, I will time block what I want to get done and prioritize it. And I might look at content and go, there's all these things that I want to do, but my day-to-day work is the priority.
Yeah.
I have my family and I've got content I want to create. And I kind of had enough time with this to go, well, I've got this hour, or this is when my kids go to bed.
Okay.
This is when I can fit certain things in. And I think I've done it for so long, I can use certain programs and applications and go, right, I can take this content, upload it, and it will help snip things down, trim things down. All I have to do is then publish and schedule posting for it.
I think you should share this schedule with everyone as one of the content because everyone needs this.
Yeah.
Time management is the biggest asset.
Massively. It works for me. It works for me in terms of what I do. And I think at the moment I've got to a point where I'm comfortable to say no to things.
Yeah.
Like previously, I was always, when I was kind of building the brand, and I was kind of go, yes, ask me yes, and I'll find a way. Whereas now I look at something and go, does it align with my values?
Yeah.
And does it align with what I want my companies or associate, my brand, what I want it to be. And if it doesn't, I'll just say, thanks for thinking of me, but no. Or if it doesn't fit in with a time frame, I go, look, I'd love to, but I don't have time. And it works both ways because people reach out to me and I then might take a day, or sometimes I've taken 5 days to respond. And I'm like, I'm really sorry. I've had this, and this, and it just gets disappeared under other things on top of it. So you have to set admin hours, I think, without letting yourself be distracted by emails that come through. What you find is people email, phone, ping, whatever you do, stop it, you look at it, and then it takes 27 minutes, I think they said, to then refocus. I think the data says, it's like admin hour, turn everything off and just go 5 o'clock till 6 o'clock. That's an admin hour. I'll tackle emails, I'll tackle messages, I'll tackle those things. And then that's done.
So you have schedule for everything.
Near enough, yeah.
Yeah. And as you correctly said, the key takeaway is less is more these days.
Yeah, and that sounds really anal. I know that in terms of me, but it works for me with 2 busy girls, a wife who's out later than that, and things that I want to do. And I have to, it's like, I look at other people, like I love Stephen Bartlett. Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO. Yeah. And I'm thinking, he's here soon as well.
Okay.
He's at the Coca-Cola, he's here soon. It's like, but he's like, you publish, you have to schedule the gym. And I have to do that as well.
Yeah.
Because then I know it's blocked. And there's a methodology called time blocking.
Okay.
And so I do that, I write out the things, I block off time, and that's my priority for that half an hour. Doesn't always go to plan, but generally it keeps me on track and I go, right, I've not missed anything.
Correct. That's important. Maybe it's not 100% correct or perfect, but at least plan works out.
Exactly.
So the connection between teacher, parents, students, it's very profound, right? And you also will be having so many profound relationship in your career. What is one of the best relationship that you have had with your student or a parent?
See, I'm very fortunate where I work school-wise, and I think Dubai resonates this as an education community about community.
Yeah.
And that parents are heavily involved in education. And where I work, we can, very fortunately, walk to school or cycle to school or scooter to school. And there's not many within Dubai that I think it's possible to do that.
Okay.
Which means that students who go to that school predominantly live within the area. And so within that, I have 2 daughters at the school and they make friends. I get to go off and make friends with other parents and they know I all work at the school. I think to start with, I was a little bit reluctant and resistant to it because you are a professional.
Correct.
And even though both my daughters are in primary and I'm in secondary, it's still of that. But what you realize is, and you don't let your guard down, but you just don't talk about work. It's very simple with that. So I've been able to build some wonderful relationships with parents of students that I teach. I then happen to play rugby. So I'll give you an example this morning. So this morning, my daughter's in a dance competition and they went for the technical rehearsal at school. Yeah. And one of her best friends has a father I play rugby with.
Okay.
But also he has 3 older daughters, all of whom I've taught.
Okay.
One of them's gone off to university in Madrid, and the other 2, one is in year 12, one is in year 10. And so, but I knew him through rugby first. Before then teaching his daughters per se. Yes. And so that relationship is, they all know my youngest daughter.
Yeah.
Hi, Olivia. They go around and play. We've been around to their house for a barbecue. We go and play rugby. And then in school, it's like you can have that conversation. And like even this morning, just talking about how's Laura getting on in Spain? Yeah, oh, great. And Bear, I've got Bear in a minute. Sorry, names I shouldn't have. But I've got these two that are there. And they're like, oh, great, how are they getting on? And it's like, they're really good. It's really, and having that, being able to talk outside of the classroom, a more relaxed approach. I think sometimes the onus on like this formal parent-teacher conference can be good. But sometimes to be able to have that relationship and have a relaxed approach to it where you can open and honestly discuss it and see those relationships with, we're friends outside, we do things together versus I still have your child and every other child's best interest at heart is wonderful. And it allows you to build those
bonding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you may find, let's say, that you're off playing paddle with some of the parents that you do it, or you've got rugby, and I coach kids that are at my school, so I'm friends with the parents because I'm externally coaching and doing. Dubai is a small place, and it allows you to build great relationships with parents, with students outside of school. Yeah. And even for me, where I live in the Springs, and it's like I'll go out and it's like I'm at the shops. And normally in the UK, you'd be like, oh, head down, don't. And all the kids are like,
here you say, yes.
Kids, hey, sir. And if a kid doesn't say, if I've seen a kid in Spinners and they don't say hello to me, I will see them on Monday and go, why don't you say hello to me?
Oh, wow,
and they're
nice.
they're like, really sorry, sir. I'll say
Next time
yes.
they better come and acknowledge.
But they like that. They recognize and they appreciate. Well,
Yes.
I don't sleep in the school, guys. I don't live here.
Yeah.
And so they like that, and I kind of like that as well. It's a nice community feel.
Yes, and you make a beautiful community out of
Exactly.
it, right? Inside the school, outside the school.
Exactly.
And saying that, what is the difference between the education system that you have seen in UK and over here?
I mean, I've been out of the UK one for a while, but the UK, I think with the exams and everything that goes with that, obviously GCSEs, your A-levels, highly academic to some extent, but there's also a massive divide in equity and equality.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate. My grammar schools, the rugby led me into grammar schools and boarding schools. And so the opportunity for those students, those children, was generally based on the wealth of their parents. And so they had access to numerous different things and opportunities. And yet you can go 5-10 miles down the road in some of those areas, and it is completely different because of state funding. So equity and equality is not level there.
Okay.
And so what it means then is, in terms of a UK system, you've got a massive divide in terms of achievement and what we talk about in terms of purely academic rather than holistic or project-based, skills-based. And there's lots of great people in the UK who are working to change that.
Okay.
You see that as well. And AI, the technology side, it drives that massively. Whereas here, it's different because every school is near enough a fee-paying school.
Yeah.
And there are still slight divides in equity and equality because that's because what you can afford to pay teachers and what teachers want and so on, how much it costs to go to certain schools. But generally, the innovation, the technology, all of those parts that contribute to it are a huge part of the education system in Dubai. And I had this conversation and I was like, I don't know if I could go back and teach in the UK now.
Okay.
I'm so accustomed to
this.
Students having their own devices, being able to just go, right, let's hop onto this piece of AI or let's research and everything's interconnected. Whereas that isn't necessarily the case in UK secondary schools where students bring their own devices.
Yeah.
And so for me, that is driving the standard of education here like further into the future.
And for the holistic development in a total. So seeing that, does cultural diversity also plays a big role?
Yeah, massively.
Yeah.
I mean, we know Dubai is a huge melting pot of different cultures.
Yeah.
It's transient with people moving in and out. And it's one of the best things about school, even having been here for so long, my favorite, International Day.
Okay.
Without doubt, International Day, because you get to learn about so many new cultures.
Correct.
And their heritage, as well as the food. Food's always a great thing about that, by the way. And then you kind of realize, like, I didn't realize you were from there. And like, even though we have the images of the flags of the countries where students are from, it's like, I don't know. And then you get to learn something about it, and then you can integrate it into the lessons.
Correct.
And so for me now, like, AI makes that so much easier. And even talking with people on my podcast about, tell me what it's like teaching in India, tell me how the culture affects this.
Correct.
About certain things. And for us now, we can pick out parts of the holidays, like learning about Emirati and Islamic culture that we want to bring into the lessons. So I did a lesson about Ramadan and fasting because my students were learning about hormones. And you can marry those two things together and talk about the values and the responsibilities and the aims of this versus what's the impact on the human body and why these things. And it brings and bridges, students who are Islamic and have this faith, and students who maybe aren't aware of it, and they're thinking about, the stress it puts on the body as well. And so you're learning science with Emirati and Islamic values and culture, and you could do that with any other ones of them. You could pick out ones, but it's just, now I think it's so much easier to do because you've got an AI platform or numerous AI platforms that will help you ideate. I'm teaching a lesson on hormones. I want to bring in some sort of Emirati and Islamic values. Can you give me 10 ideas of what I could do?
Okay.
You pick out the best 2 and go, I love these 2, let's elaborate.
Yeah.
And it brings out these ideas that you think, I would never have thought about that on my own. And so the idea of bringing in different values and cultures could be something to do with, like, what did someone say about the orange, white, and green of certain flags?
Oh,
and
nice.
In terms of that, and like there's certain animals that are sacred in other countries, and why this and why that, in terms of foods and comparisons of calorific intake and what, why that. And so it's great because here especially we get social studies.
Yes, and we witness that, right, in the school itself when there are multiple nationalities sitting in the same classroom and that helps our students to bring holistically development and making them better human being.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So saying that, what will be your re-engineered advice to your educators or to your school leaders?
So for me, and this is my personal story with it. So over last 5 years, I got to a point where I'd been a middle leader in education for a long period of time, and I wanted to then move and develop up to being a senior leader. I wanted to be someone involved in teaching and learning because that was always my interest, and I found great value in it. And I went for a job and I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I went for another jobs, close, didn't get it. And it went on, and that happens to lots of teachers. And I think then I took a step back and go, well, if no one's going to offer me that role, and I want to then get the experience and knowledge, or let me rephrase that, I want to get the expertise and knowledge, because no one's going to give me the experience. So I've got to show that I'm an expert in this field. That's what led me to start Deep Teaching, which is now Deep Professional. And that's what's gone on to then create the International Classroom. And so I then took it on board myself to go, well, if you're not going to give me these opportunities, and if I can't develop the skills and expertise that way, I'm going to just take a look and re-engineer what I do to do those things. And so I then said, right, I've got these skills, I've got these interests, I'm going to publish content, because when I do that, I've got to research it. I've then got to be in a position where I'm able to talk about it and understand it and go from there. And so for me, I think with educators, when we think about re-engineering, it's a case of, you know, looking at skill sets that you might have and breaking those things down, as well as, well, what are the skill sets that you want to have? Where do you want to go? And what type of educator do you want to be?
Yeah.
And thinking about, well, how do I get to that point? What do I need to change or tweak, you know, and then build back up? So for me, it's a case of, if you don't get that job, if you're not successful first or second time round, think of the ways in which you can re-engineer yourself, maybe not necessarily within the classroom or within the school, but outside of the school, where you are doing the thing that you want and providing value for the other educators in a format that's useful and accessible, that gives you the expertise. Because once you have the expertise, someone is going to come along and allow you to experience that. And I find that teachers more often than not, instead of going, I'm just going to move schools, or I'm just going to, it's like, no, re-engineer yourself, re-engineer the process in allowing yourself to achieve those things. And that's what I did. And I think that is what's led me to the position I'm going to take on in August.
Oh, yeah, amazing. And I think as a teacher, what is the best thing is that re-engineering this methodology to find out the best potential what a student has.
Yeah.
Right. So saying that as a teacher, what is the best moment for you for teaching in your classroom?
The best moment, and it happens in every classroom, and there's always one or two, but is when we have a phrase that says, when the penny drops.
Okay.
In other words, when a student just gets it. And you can see that moment on their face, because they're like, the eyes go and the mouths go, and they're just like, huh! And it's like, you get it, you understand it. And some of them, it's because you just, in a traditional way, it's like, that makes so much sense, it flows, it connects.
You see the magic.
Exactly.
Okay.
And in other ways, it's like, for me, I've had to think about how I can make it or re-engineer what I delivered first time, so then for you to get it. And sometimes the simple story, when they go, that makes sense now, I get it. And like, there was one, and I love talking about this one with a year 8 class most recently. So I love this AI application called Mindjoy. Spoke about it, I have videos on it, I think it's great. Basically, it's an AI tutor you set. And so my students are using it to help personalize what they're doing. And one of the kids at the end of the lesson we're talking about ionic bonds and so forth in chemistry. And she goes, "Sir, is that a lattice?" And I was like, amazing, And she, and the smile on her face, she was like, the AI tutor told me that. And it was just like, that's fantastic in terms of...
It's like the eureka moment. Yes, I got it.
She walked out there so proud and happy that she'd got this new piece of information. She'd found it herself with AI herself. And I was just there to go, yeah, you're right. And she was like, this is the best thing ever. and those types of moments that I think now are becoming more frequent, simply because of the ways and means that we can do it. But those are the best moments in teaching, when these kids are just like, their faces, they're engaged, they love it, and it's just, yes, I've got it.
The happiness that you see,
Exactly.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure having you, and love all the insights that you have shared, and I love the passion that you have for education and the way you are continuously re-engineering it.
Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to come on and talk about it. If we know anything about teachers, is that we love to talk. So I really appreciate this, and thank you ever so much.
Thank you so much. And audience listening to us, stay tuned. And if you like this episode, please like and subscribe. And every Friday evening, 6 p.m. UAE time, I come up with re-engineered stories from authentic individuals who are redefining and reinitiating the definition of success. Till then, thank you.